Hello, everyone. I have with me someone that I haven't recorded with in a while. We've done a lot of cooperations, and he was essential also in providing information that I required for my latest book, Men's Psyche: The Two Worlds. I'm referring to Tim Ozman. How you doing, man?
Hey, thanks for having me on. And yeah, it's good to catch up. It's been months,
Yeah, at
few
least.
months.
Yeah, if not more. And a lot happened since then. I know that a lot happened in your life. You changed a lot of things that needed to be done, and I did too, actually. So I've been a bit absent due to that. Absent, well, not from my own stuff, but absent from these discussions. And it's been quite a fascinating year, let's say. Between 2025 and 2026, a lot has happened in between, don't you think?
Absolutely. And I would probably argue that the Charlie Kirk psyop is the most significant assassination since JFK in terms of its impact on the world stage. And it's been a great example of something to study because it has all the hallmarks of a hoax. It has copious evidence of predictive programming, concurrent programming, and then we can look at the agendas that follow it and the manufactured guardrailed perspectives on it that have continued to propagate since. So yeah, it's been a very educational year for those of us taking the off-world stage perspective.
Yeah, it's Charlie Kirk is actually a prime example, yeah, as you've stated, because it has just like JFK, and you of course compare the two a lot, and rightly so, have a whole set. It's like a whole array of theories that seem to have been even, written way before the actual event was presented. Because one side will think it was, Israel, right? The other side think, no, it was perhaps the far right that inside of Trump's government, and they wanted, because he was a threat and he was about to expose, whatever. So you see already the alternatives seemingly pre-written into the package of the event, right? Which is actually
That's a,
something, yeah.
yeah, that's a very good point. Pre-written, because people mistake conspiracy theories for being organic and the result of the people's media doing their own research. But as you stated, these are pre-written, what I call guardrail narratives, because they know a certain percentage of the population aren't going to buy the mainstream, so they have to provide them an acceptable alternative that doesn't upset the game board. And all of the alternative conspiracy theories about Kirk start with the presumption he was actually killed. And as long as you hold on to that, the entire system remains intact.
Right. It reminds me when I was still within the, let's say, world stage, as we call it. It reminds me when I was looking at Christianity, and I had a realization, which was, wait a second, when Protestantism appeared, it actually saved Christianity. At the time, I thought it was an organic thing, and things were not pre-written as I do now, but nonetheless, I considered that the appearance of Protestantism was very, very convenient because it was at a time when people were getting some descent towards Catholicism, right? And so this was used as a to maintain people within Christianity, but with an alternative, so a Protestant view. And even the word Protestant, they protest against the mainstream Christianity of the time, but still remain Christian, right? So the central point remains intact, right?
That's a valid point. I've noticed this as an analogy when the lockdowns happened. I realized, wait, if the mainstream is the world state church and its priesthood are the pundits, then those who are rejecting it, who are protesting, are essentially fulfilling the role of the Protestants. And the problem here with it is that instead of rejecting the media itself as a presence, they're merely taking a different interpretation on it. So it's like you're not really leaving the controlled paradigm. You're just taking another position, what I call the anti.
Right.
And to me, that's when I realized, yeah, we're looking at a duopoly. Mainstream and alt are both establishment. And like as you said, the Protestants in this are actually part of the picture. They're not actually an authentic resistance.
Scripted conflict, manufactured conflict of these two sides. Oh, the mainstream versus the MSM plus and whatever. It solidifies in perception the reality of these central points. You know, it's like, for example, when you have an election, right, and you have this apparent conflict between, I don't know, Biden versus Trump, or whatever. You have apparently this conflict between two very disparate worldviews, right? Oh, one sees government this way, the other one sees government that way. And in fact, by participating in that apparent conflict, what is done is that government in the center, the idea of government itself, regardless if it's leftist or rightist, is solidified in the perception. So both these people participating in that conflict are already assuming and solidifying the idea that we need government in this format, right?
Yes, that's actually, I think, one of the primary features. It's the Hegelian dialectic, where they both agree on a premise, and that's really the synthesis, but they're taking it from completely opposite sides. And I've been pointing out recently that this is engineered into every event. If you notice, every major staged event or event that we allege to be staged is perfectly split down the middle to be agreed upon by both sides, but each side scapegoats the other for it. And this also pertains to the people that they introduce to populate these events. So, for example, Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci. Well, these
Right.
are heroes and saviors to one side, but yet they're arch villains to the other side. How can they be both? Well, it doesn't matter the system because both sides agree they exist. And if they exist, then the historic events they're a part of exist. So again, the dialectic here, the fight between the left and the right, I think is engineered to make the staged events real through our participation in them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's one thing that you usually say that really stuck with me. That is, it's like wrestling, right? Because you have all that build up to the supposed fight, and I mean, people know that wrestling is fake, right? But you have all this build up, the interviews of, yeah, I'm gonna kill the guy and whatever, that kind of thing, all that hype to sell the fight. And when it actually, the fight day emerges, it's packed. It's packed because people, were interested in all the buildup, in all the conflict, in all that, even sometimes aggressive speech and aggressive kind of behavior from both sides. And it solidified the central point, which was they sold the show, right? So they sold the seats to watch the show and the pay-per-views and whatever it is that they do around it, and the advertisement, and
Yes.
so everything
It's
is sold. Yeah,
it's like the participation that they create is the point. So if you go to a regular wrestling match, you're in the audience, you have the coaches, the refs, and they're wrestling, and the wrestlers are focused on fighting and winning. When you go to the WWE, where it's all kayfabe, the wrestlers interact with the audience. They, like Hulk Hogan, he gets energized by the audience cheering. They get booed, and they actually troll the crowds if they're the heel. And that participation, the interaction between the audience and the staged event, that's what they engineer with psyops. And they do so, I believe, because they're trying to make these staged events realer than something that is just broadcast, just for people to passively perceive, but rather by getting you involved in such a way that, well, now you're in a psychological warfare zone where there's antagonists and all the people you know are either on your side or against you. So they drag you into the fight itself. So we've all been dragged into the ring. You could look at the world stage as a big wrestling ring in the sense, and it's all kayfabe.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of, in the narrative recorded history of communism, there was this idea that, and again, I'm talking about, the narrative, what is written about. Of course, that too was presented perhaps for a reason, but nonetheless, it was presented that when the first communist revolutions emerged, in their meetings, they were discussing, if we do this revolution right, all the other workers around the world will join in and will do their own revolutions, right? Of course, it didn't organically happen that way, but the idea is the same. The idea is that by presenting an example of, changing something in a certain way or doing something in a certain way, and involving people in it. So this is why it's so key for people to internalize whatever side they choose. Right? It doesn't matter if you're a Trumpist or a leftist it doesn't matter. As long as you internalize it and make it yours, you are sort of, and this is quote unquote, downloading a package of prefabricated, beliefs within a certain worldview, right? So if you are to the left, you have to believe a certain thing, and that comes with the package, right? If you are to the right, you have to believe a certain thing, and that comes with a package. And that is how they, quote unquote, in the same sense, make the workers join, right? So it's like they make their own pseudo-revolution, which is, of course, never a revolution, nor is it intended to be. But they make this revolution inside their minds, that we are changing something. We are fighting the, oppressors, which is something that you touch upon a lot recently.
We think.
We think.
Because
yeah.
When you say we, you're invoking the collective. And I look at history as our collective memory. And for you to say, I remember something, it means that you had to have participated with it. And by engaging in a psyop, whether you're marching in the streets because of ICE killing Renee Good, or if you're on Twitter retweeting a bunch of stuff about Epstein, you're participating in the staged historic event, and now it's part of your experience. So now your collective memory, your memory is actually aligned with the collective memory. So what Napoleon Bonaparte said about history is that history is lies agreed upon. And so what they're doing is they're getting us to participate in the manufacturing of our fake history through social media and activism. And that makes it so that, now you can speak for the we, the consensus, which is what the world stage is. It's the consensus agreement.
Yes, and it's very interesting that you bring that up because supposedly, the collectivists are the left, and the right wings are supposedly individualistic, right, and entrepreneurs and that kind of thing. When in fact, when we really look at what they believe in and how they are, let's say, pre-formatted, all of them, the far, the moderate, the whatever, all of them share a collective. They have completely left their individuality at the door when stepping into those temples, because it's a sort of worship, right, of an ideology, whatever it is, it doesn't matter.